Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. Hello, I am so glad you're here. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and we are going to talk about free motion quilting. And we're going to look at an art quilt as our canvas, our playground for free motion quilting on a home machine. Hello, Taylor. How are you? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, Taylor. And hello, Lorraine. How are you, my sweet friend in Fredericksburg, Virginia? So glad you're here. Good evening from Texas, says Taylor. For those watching on Amazon Live, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Amazon because we're going to talk about what a lot of women are afraid to do, and that's free motion quilting. And you don't have to be afraid. And I'm going to use this art quilt as an example. And I'm going to share with you a lot of different tools. That's the operative word tonight, tools. You want the right tools. When we have the right tools, it increases confidence, it increases success, and our enjoyment of the process because we want our art making process with thread on fabric to be successful. So let's look at what we're going to talk about. We're going to break it down. I'm going to break it down very easily for you, I hope. This is the art quilt. It's small, it's not very big. And that's what I suggest. When you're starting quilting, free motion quilting, start small, but also find ways to be creative and to experiment. So this was an experiment. I tried several different threads, which I'm going to show you tonight. Here's a couple of those threads, different thread weights, different colors, which meant I had to use different size needles. That's right. I was testing needles and thread with this project, and I was trying some different techniques. And so here you can see some of the process, like picking fabric. What kind of fabric is going to work well with free motion quilting and work well with applique? So let's take a look at that fabric. I'm going to go to the overhead camera and I'm going to highlight it for those on Amazon watching. This is Island Batik fabric. I chose foundation fabrics. Foundation fabrics are those that are ones you can usually get all the time. They might change it just a little bit. So, hello, Bianca. So glad you're following. Fantastic. Bianca says hello to those over there on YouTube and on Facebook. So, Bianca and Taylor, this is how piece started. I looked for a foundation, a neutral cream color. I didn't want white and I didn't want a solid color. I chose some fabrics from their foundations. Can you see that this has a little bit of a background texture to it? It's not a solid cream color. There's some dimension to it. So I like to use that for backgrounds. We all have our own personal preference, but this is what I chose. So this has some texture to it. It looks solid, but it has some texture and dimension. So this is one. Let's look at this one. This is another one in their foundations. Hopefully you can see that. You see the different looks that you can get, just subtle changes in the background. It's not very pronounced, but it's just enough. Just enough. So I like having these options. Here's another one where not only is there a pattern in the background, but there's some variations in the cream. Some sections are darker than others. Like it's a little bit darker here. It's a little bit lighter over here. And then this pattern is a little bit more pronounced. Now, not only did I do that for the background, I chose batik fabric because it's tightly woven. I like batik fabric, especially for applique. And that's what I did with the silhouette of the eyes. Let's go back just one so that you can see that again. So there are the eyes. That's before any thread. And I'm going to show you what I use to help attach the applique to the fabric. Hey Val, so glad you're here. Thanks for following. So let's go back to the overhead camera. Hey Phyllis over there on YouTube. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Phyllis from Indianapolis. Okay, so here are some dark fabrics. Now this is a solid black. Just solid, and sometimes that is exactly what you need. But like I said, it's highlighted in the carousel for those on Amazon. And if you're watching on YouTube, there are links in the description box below for all of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. So here is another one. Hello, Rochelle over there on YouTube. So glad you're here. We're talking about batik fabric. Oh, you're welcome, Val. Look at that little bit of subtle pattern. Hey, Lois in Delaware, watching from YouTube. So glad you're here, Lois. So there's a little bit of a pattern there. It's black on black. I like to use those types of fabrics. Here's another one, which I'll highlight in the carousel. So these two are foundations. When you go to the Island Batik shop here on Amazon, you're going to click on it and it's going to say foundations. And you're going to see a variety of light and dark fabrics. So go check that out. But you can also get some that are not in the foundations and they come in a collection. This is what is this one called again? This is Storm. This one is Storm. It's Storm. Now, you see the subtleties in the color. There's black on black, but there's a little bit of blue in this. A little bit of blue. It's maybe hard to see on camera. Let me know, Val or Bianca, if you can see the subtlety of this blue in the background. When I lay it against this pure black, maybe you can see it now. But it's so dark, it can read as black. It just depends on what you want to do. So that's what I did when I started to think about what fabrics I wanted for the silhouettes on the eye. So I'm going to go back again. Now, in this photo, you can see that I have some fabric that has a backing on it. I use some two-sided fusible web. Oh, you can see the subtleties. Fantastic, Val. Thanks for letting me know. I use two different things. One, I just highlighted in the carousel. It's Pellon Steam, Easy Steam. Easy Steam. And the other one is Wonder Under. So the first one, Easy Steam. Let's take a look at that in the overhead camera. It's a fusible web. It's two-sided, and that's what I wanted. Something that's going to stick to the dark fabric for the eyes, and then stick to the background fabric. What's nice about this Easy Steam is that it has a grid on it if you need exact placement. I like having a grid. And you can see I've been using it. And it's two-sided. You stick it on one side. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. That's the fusible web right there. It's very light. And it's called Easy Steam 2. Two-sided, pressure-sensitive fusible web. Have you ever used this before? Ladies over there on YouTube or Facebook, have you tried this? This is fantastic for applique, and it's easy to use. 5 simple steps for a permanent hold. That's what it says right here. And it holds well. The other option, you can use something called, that's nice to have a grid version, Taylor. It's nice when you want exact placement. Another one that I use is this one here. This is Wonder Under. Just highlighted this in the carousel for those on Amazon. And again, it's in the description box below on YouTube, the link. And it's a paper-backed fusible web. And it is just the right size for the eyebrows. It's great for collages. Yeah, Val, it is. Perfect for collages. So I like to use this when I need just the right amount to control the way. All right, Phyllis, you haven't tried it, but you're going to. Wonderful. I love using the right product, right tool for the job. And this is Wonder Under. It's another fusible web tape, and it has multiple applications. You can use it for all kinds of things. If you're doing a hem, if you're doing a binding, you want to put it in place before you stitch it down. Anything that you want to do that will help place the fabric in the position so it doesn't shift for the next stage of stitching. So that's another reason why I like to use this Wonder Under. Okay, so that is how I attached the eyebrows and the eyes. Okay, using fusible web, double-sided. And you just have to find the one that you like. Now, there are some that I use, and one is called Decor Bond. Let me see. Do I have it highlighted here in the carousel? I thought I did. Let's see. It is available here on Amazon. It's called Pellon, a two-sided fusible stabilizer, Decor Bond. It is a heavier weight than the other two I just showed you. Those are thin and nice and pliable. This one I like to use especially for art quilts. It's heavier weight, it's thicker, and I like to use this one. You can see, hopefully you can see the glue on that. It's on both sides. When I want an art quilt that's going to be on the wall and I want it to be just flat and stiff, not bunch. It won't bunch up. It will hold its shape, and it's fine for free motion quilting. You can free motion quilt on this very easily. So this is the two-sided Pellon fusible stabilizer. I use the Decor Bond often, and it's number 82. Hello, Cindy. So glad you're here. Awesome. Thank you for following. We are talking about art quilts as a playground for free motion quilting. Okay, so far we've gone over the fabric for the art quilt. We've talked about how to fuse the fabric to another piece of fabric. And now let's look at what are the next stages. How do you decide what you're going to quilt? And my particular piece has a story. And so that influences what I choose. It's called Eye Piece. And so I decided to use an Asian theme. And the theme, let's go back to it here. I will cover this up here so that you can see. The Asian theme runs throughout. I used bamboo stencil, then I used a lettering in Japanese that says peace, and then the free motion quilting in the background is based on an Asian Japanese influence. So that's how I decided what to quilt. But the first thing was to work around those eyes. And I want to show you a photo of that. And I don't have that particular thread here. I couldn't find it. Maybe I used it all, but it's a thread by Aurifil, and it's a 12 weight thread. It's very heavy. It's a heavy, thicker thread. And so you need a special needle. Now we're starting the discussion on, as we free motion quilt and we want to use different threads to accomplish different things, we want to have the right size needle. So when I use a 50 weight thread, I'm using 80-12. When I go thicker to 90-14, to a 40 weight thread, then I'm going to a 90-14 needle, and then 30 weight, and then 12. I used 100 needle on this, and I like to use, hey Victoria, thank you for following on Amazon. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So now we're looking at heavier weight thread and what needle combination do we use. So I tried 100 needle. I'll go to the overhead camera. This is Superior Threads. Oops, that's 90-14. Wrong one. Here we go. Here we go. There it is. Okay. 116 needle. And it worked. I did 2 passes around those silhouettes with that heavier weight thread. And it helped give those eyes a distinction around that, as well as the eyebrows. Let's look at that again so you can see how that worked. Number 1, here we go. See that stitching, and that was done free motion. And stick around because I'm going to do a demo on my machine. You're probably wondering, well, what machine did she use? And I use a Janome Memory Craft. It's a home machine, highlighted in the carousel for those watching on Amazon. That is what I used. That's the first thread that I used in this project. Okay, after that, what happened? I started to fill in those words peace in Japanese. And what I used was this thread right here. This is another thread, but it's not as heavy as the first one. This is, let's see, I need my glasses. This is 28, and it's another heavier thread. And again, I used a 100 needle for this as well. And I filled in. I did a little bit of an echo first. Then I did some free motion applique, and I used a special foot. I'm going to highlight that foot in the carousel. Let's highlight. It's a free motion convertible foot. It's highlighted now in the carousel, and I love that foot to be able to do free motion embroidery. Let's take a look at this thread. This is the thread that I'm using and for that part of the quilt, and I'll highlight this in the carousel. You can get it singularly or you can get it in a set. This is 28. It's a heavier weight thread. You can see that. Hopefully you can see that. I'll show you the threads next to each other so you can see the difference. Okay. So that was for number 3. That was for the lettering. Now, let me go back one here. You can see how I filled that in, and I used a water-soluble marker to transfer the lettering. You can see that with the blue. And then I just had to follow the line, do an echo, and free motion quilt in that lettering. Okay, so that was done also with the bamboo. You transfer the stencil design, you do the outline, then you free motion embroider that with your thread. And with that, since it required a lot of free motion, I used a thinner thread. So far, we have 3 different threads and three different thread weights. This one is thinner. And I'm going to highlight that in the carousel on Amazon. This is a 50 weight thread. And it was just the right thing that I needed for, you can get this in different sizes. This is the smaller spool. The one highlighted in the carousel is the larger spool. So I love using the right thread for the project. Remember, this is an opportunity. These small art quilts are our playground. Testing, right? You can play with different threads and have fun. Let's look at this one here. You can see the weight difference, maybe. Maybe you can see it, hopefully. Let me get a piece of fabric, and maybe that will help. You can see the difference in the weight, hopefully. Let's see. I'm going to try and hold this up to the camera. Okay. So here is, it's hard to see this light one on the light fabric, but hopefully you can see the difference in weight. And you need a different size needle. So for this one, I used the 100 needle, and for this one, I used an 80-12 needle. And they're both Topstitch needles. Topstitch needles. All of these are Topstitch needles. Let me show you the Topstitch. Found you finally on Amazon. All right, Lois, I'm so glad you did. Thank you for coming by. It's wonderful to have you here on Amazon. So I'm going to highlight the needles on Amazon. You can also, if you've never tried these Topstitch, I have these all the time. I use them for free motion quilting because long Topstitch needles have elongated eyes, and I love an elongated eye for fast action stitching. But I also use it for piecing. I use it for everything, really. I just use Topstitch needles because I get the results I want. I don't have to worry. I don't have any concern. I just make sure I use the right size to go with the thread. You want the right needle and thread combination. So for 80-12 needles, you're using 50 weight thread. So Phyllis is asking, what is the thickness of the thread in relation to the number? So 50 weight thread, I always start there in the middle because that's what we use mostly. It is a lighter thread. It works for most things. And you use an 80-12 needle, 50 weight. If I go thicker, a thicker or heavier thread, the number is going to be a 40. It gets lower. So 40 weight is thicker than 50, and 30 is thicker than 40. 60 weight, the other side of 50, is going thinner. 60, 80, 100 weight. Those are thinner threads. The higher the number, the thinner the thread is. So 100 needles, what I used for these two threads, and 90-14 would have been for a 40 weight thread. Now you can get a sample pack. You can get a sample pack if you've never tried it before. I've highlighted in the carousel here on Amazon. You can try a sample pack of needles where you get a 70, an 80, a 90, and a 100, 80 and a 100. Yep, you get those, and you can try those needles out. Hey, Lois, don't forget to hit that follow button if you haven't already. Hopefully you're still on Amazon. All right, ladies. Okay, so We've talked about how to select the fabric and why I selected the fabric that I did, right? We talked about that. We talked about how to transfer our design, our silhouette from the paper, by tracing it onto a fusible web, excuse me, fusible web, cutting it out, and then putting it on our fabric. And then we talked about filling in the free motion in the background. So now I want to show you how to do that on a machine. How does that work? There is the background thread. This is the last thread. This is the 40 weight thread. And this is glide thread. Glide. I love glide. I'm going to highlight it in the carousel as soon as I can find it. Usually I have them all right next to each other. There we go. I always get the large spool. The large spool is just economical. It just is. I love it. And it is has a sheen to it. And I wanted just a little bit of sheen. It's not overly shiny. It has just the right amount. So when I do a lot of texture quilting, I want to be able to see it in the background sometimes, and not just the texture of the thread. I want, when the light passes it, for it to glisten a little bit. And I get such good results with glide thread. I love glide thread. And this spool is, let's see, how many yards are in this? It's a polyester thread, and it's 5,000 meters. 5,000 meters. So you can see that info right there. All right, a 40 weight thread. So I'm going to use a 90-14 needle. This is my combination. I use this frequently. I just change the thread color, and I'm always using this 90-14 needle. So I have plenty of these needles on hand. Okay, so now it's time for that demo. I'm going to switch cameras. I'm going to go to the other side of the room where my sewing machine is, and we're going to talk about a Janome memory craft. I just highlighted one in the carousel on Amazon. It is, hello, Pamela, over there on YouTube. I'm so glad you're here. Awesome. Now, it is a Janome memory craft. Mine is an older model, but it has many of the exact same features. It even looks exactly the same. And it is what I call okay, let's start this conversation. Let me tell you that I have purchased many machines. So I have spent money on machines that didn't do what I wanted it to do. I wanted to free motion quilt. So eventually I said, I need to get serious about it and get a machine that's going to last, that's going to do what I want to do. And this machine has done it for years. That's why I still have it. It's done it for years. And that's why it's an older model. But it came with all the feet that I needed for free motion. So I always recommend, figure out what you want to do. If you want to do free motion quilting, you want to be artistic and make art quilts and do your own stitching, decorative stitching, free motion stitching, you want to stitch tote bags, quilts, clothing. If you do a lot, hello, Benita, I'm so glad you're here. Fantastic. Get a machine that's going to give you what you need. Now, I stop the line at getting a sewing machine that is also an embroidery machine. I'd rather have a separate machine that's for embroidery. That way it can embroider while I'm sewing over here. Okay, I don't want my sewing machine being tied up with embroidery stitching for 30, 40 minutes at a time. I would separate that. So this machine is a Janome memory craft, and it is a fantastic machine. And I'm going to show you it. Now I'm going to switch cameras. Enough talk. Let's look at the machine. All right, so here we go. There's the machine. I'm going to switch my mic to. You're gonna see me in just a moment. Have to get to the other side of the room. Not that it's that far, but I need to change some things over. All right. I am coming. I promise. All right, here I am. The audio is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk a little bit louder. You're going to see mostly my hands. And this is the Janome New Home 7700 Memory Craft. Remember, it's an older model, but it's very similar to the one in the carousel on Amazon. And it has a ton of stitches. It has so many features. It also has this attachment in the back that's called, it's a thread stand for larger spools. And it has this guide where you can bring in 1 or 2 spools of thread. So that's in the back. Up here, it has a ton of feet. All kinds of feet up here. And it came with, remember I said it came with this free motion foot. Now I'm going to show you another one. This is the free motion convertible foot that I mentioned earlier. And this is what's on the machine. This is for another machine that I had that was a Janome, also a Janome, but an earlier model, even earlier than this one. So I'm going to highlight in the carousel. Let's see if I can get there. If you have a Janome and you want to get this foot, I'm going to highlight that in the carousel for you. And my ladies over there on YouTube, I cannot see the chat to respond to your questions at the moment while I'm at the machine. I will respond to any questions you have when I get back to the other side of the room. So this is the convertible foot that's now on the machine. And why is it convertible? This section here on the bottom, you can unscrew this. There's a screw here in the back. And you can change this foot out. Right now, it's the open toe foot that's on here. See how it's open, which is my favorite foot. But it also comes with additional feet. Hello over there on Amazon. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. So you can change this out easily. And it's the Janome convertible free motion quilting foot. And of course, you're going to get directions with it, and they show you how to attach the different pieces. Okay? And this is the machine. There's 11 inches here, which is a lot of space for free motion quilting. You normally don't get that in most home machines. You have a speed control, scissors, needle up and needle down. This is to stop the stitching once the design is complete. This is reverse, and you can start and stop stitching with this button, or you can use the pedal. I'm a pedal person. It also has this section where it stores additional feet, and it becomes a free arm. So you get all these additional feet, all numbered, so you know exactly what foot goes where and what is missing if it is missing. And then this side is another storage compartment. Okay, some of them fell when I tilted that over. Let me put that back in. So there is a compartment below this area right here. So I'm going to go back to the sewing machine. There we go. It's a Janome Memory Craft. So there's a compartment where you have additional feet. Like here is the zipper. No, this is the buttonhole. There's a seam ripper. And there's this little screwdriver. Okay, so that you can remove the stitch plate to clean, etc. Okay. So I've had this machine for more than 10 years. I love Janome machines. Now, for free motion quilting, and this one was made for free motion quilting, and you know, because it came with this convertible foot and the attachments. It sits right up in here. There's spots for your free motion foot. Now, you can free motion quilt and you have enough space, just enough, but once your quilt gets bigger, you want more space here, right? So I always recommend, if you can't put your machine in a table, to put the machine on top of a table with an extension, an extension table that's acrylic. And you can get one made specifically for your machine. And you get it made by taking this portion off of the machine and then they will custom cut the acrylic insert to be exactly the right size to fit your machine. So I'm going to get my custom cut acrylic and I'm going to highlight that in the carousel. It's called a Wish Table by So Steady. It's one of the largest tables that they have, and this is the Wish Table. It was ordered and cut to fit this specific machine, and they have many machines on file that they can custom cut. Now, look at that. I have a ton of space, a flat surface, so that I can quilt without drag. When the quilt is over like this, it can pull and it make it difficult to free motion quilt. This additional space makes all the difference. The Wish Table comes with this tray where you can store different things in it, which I like having that easy access. I like this table. Now, for free motion quilting, there are other essential tools. I told you about the foot. Now I told you about this additional extension table. Now you also want something that's going to create a smooth transition between this arm on the machine and the acrylic. You want this to be smooth. And you also want something that's going to help the fabric move freely, and that is a glider or a slider. I have a glider and I'm going to highlight that in the carousel, and this is all for free motion quilting on a home machine. These are the tools that I like: an open toe foot that's adjustable, and now a sewing machine that's capable of doing free motion quilting. Not all machines are made for free motion quilting. Even though you might be able to get a foot for it, it may not be very good at free motion quilting. As soon as I upgraded to this machine, it changed the course of my free motion quilting. My free motion quilting improved, I would say, tenfold, because I got consistent stitching. My tension was good, because when they manufactured this machine, it was made for free motion quilting. Now, this glider is now making a smooth transition between the acrylic table and the sewing machine arm. There's an opening, and my opening is a little bit bigger because I cut through it a couple of times. So normally the hole is smaller so that it covers your feed dogs. And it has a natural way of gripping to the acrylic. You just have to smooth it down. Eventually, you're going to get a little bit of dust underneath here. Easy peasy to clean. You don't need soap. You just put it under warm water until all the fuzz from the fabric comes off. And then it's like new again. It's like new. Okay. So now I thought my machine was threaded. It's not threaded. Let me do that. Let me thread the machine, which is very easy to do. I'm using 40 weight thread. Okay, that dropped. Try that one more time. I use a thread stand just outside of my sewing machine, which I've shared previously in different lives. I'm going to thread the machine very fast and easy. You know, once you've threaded your machine, this has an automatic needle threader. And here is the trick for an automatic needle threader to work. I use the needle up, needle down feature. Needle down, needle up. When you do that, the needle's going to be in the right position for the threader to work. Then I like to have a long thread tail. I'll lower the foot. I make sure that the catch is inside that eye. And now it's threaded. It always works if I follow that same routine. Okay, bring up my bobbin thread. Now, when I call it a convertible foot, it's not only convertible because you can change the feet, but it's also adjustable. You can adjust the height. That's another reason why I like this foot, is because there's a wheel right here. I'll highlight it in the carousel. Again, this wheel adjusts the height of the foot. That gap right there is adjustable. So all I have to do, I'm going to hold it on this side. I turn the wheel and the height will adjust. Let's see. See it getting bigger? I'm going to go the opposite direction, and so it's going to go higher. The foot's going to go higher and higher and higher. This section is getting smaller. If you have very thick batting, you want to be able to adjust the height. This foot does not bounce. It glides across the surface of the fabric, so you can adjust the height. Love that about this machine. So I'm going to put my foot down. I'll just do this right here in the middle. And I always do needle down, needle up. I'm going to highlight this again in the carousel. We're looking at a Janome memory craft machine. For those of you just joining us on Amazon, I'm bringing up my bobbin thread. And I like to bring up my bobbin thread. Once that's up, I put the needle back down, and then I pull on the thread just a little bit. And technically, I'm ready to free motion quilt. I put my machine speed somewhere in the middle, and I basically drive the machine like I would a car. I use the foot pedal, and I can go slow and I can go fast based on the foot pedal. Okay. Now we have to move the fabric. Remember, it's free motion quilting. My hands can't grip the fabric. They slide. So I need either gloves or discs to help me control the movement of the fabric. When I was stitching around those eyes on this art piece, or stitching the background, or free motion embroidery in the words piece, I needed to have control. So these two help me with control. I like using Machingers gloves, which I'll highlight in the carousel on Amazon. And it's a preference. It has taken me a while to figure out which one I like better than the other. I have tried different gloves, but eventually these gloves are the ones that I have decided are my gloves. They have a grip on the front, on the very tips. On each of these tips, there's grip on both sides. It stops about right here. Let's see. The tip from here to here is this grip system on both sides. It stops here. The gloves are in various sizes. I like to get ones that are not too small, but not too big. You can see that grip here on the fingertips. Now, sometimes when you're quilting and you have to start and stop a lot, gloves can be inconvenient. So sometimes I will use a glove on one hand and use a disc in another hand if I want one free. It just depends on what I'm doing. So I like to stitch in place a couple of stitches to lock the thread, and then I warm up. Just like an athlete or a musician, you want to warm up. And then I wait until I get this rhythm, and I'm using my fingertips to grip the fabric. So as I move the fabric, I am stitching a design. But this is just warm up. And you want to hear a consistent speed. You don't want to be out of control. You want to be relaxed. Free motion quilting should not be a panic attack. You can hear the consistency of the machine. It's not too fast. And I'm just moving slowly. I'm not rushing. And when I feel like I no longer have control, I stop and I shift my hands. Let me show you how these discs work. They're just highlighted in the carousel, and both sides work. It doesn't matter which side you use. You can use either side, and it works the same way. I'm using the discs to grip the fabric. The closer they are to the needle, the more control I have. This is less control, this is more control. And the main thing with free motion quilting is what you want to have control. And so I will do this on a fat quarter. This is half of a fat quarter. And I will do just meander warm up like a musician or an athlete. I will warm up before I dive into my project. This is a fantastic machine for free motion quilting. A Janome memory craft machine. I'll highlight it again in the carousel. And if you have a memory craft but you don't have the thread stand in the back, this is an additional accessory for larger spools. You can get that separately. I'll highlight that also in the carousel. All right, well, I am going to come back to my main camera. I don't know if you had any questions about this machine before I return. Let me know. I will come back, and if you want me to come back again to highlight something or to talk about, I didn't really talk much about what's here. I guess I could do that. I'm going to cut the thread. You can decide what you want on this machine in terms of mode. You would just press mode, and the first one comes up called utility, which is right here. So you won't get lost. Utility is right here, and you know all the stitches that are in utility, and they're numbered. If I turn the wheel, it goes to the next section, and this is all buttonholes. And then I can decide which one I want by just clicking on this button right here. I said I want to look at the buttonholes. Now I rotate the wheel until I find the buttonhole I want. If I decide, well, I don't want to do a buttonhole, I can hit mode again. Then I can go from buttonhole to heirloom stitching or to quilt stitching. They have stitches for quilting. Yes, I want to look at those stitches. I click that and it's numbered. It starts at 93. And that corresponds exactly right here. 93 all the way up to 130. That many stitches inside quilt. And I can just rotate this wheel until I get to the number that I want. When I get to that number, I press the center button, and then it tells me, oh, you want this stitch, please raise your foot. Oh, you have a certain system engaged, you have to change the settings. So automatically, once I choose the stitch, it tells me your current setup does not work with what you want to stitch. So I'm going to come out of this here. Let's see. Yeah, this is okay. I'm going to hit that okay. But I changed my mind. I want to go back to DS mode, which is what I was using for free motion quilting. So I'm going back to my free motion quilting settings. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to come back around to the main camera to see if there are any questions from you ladies over there on YouTube. I'm almost back. All right, here I am. I'm back. Thank you. Hello, Kelly on Amazon. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. And Lois loves her Janome machine. She says so on Amazon. Thank you, Lois. Hello, Elaine. How are you? I'm so glad that you came by to say hello. Get some rest. It's late over there in Scotland. Yes, you'll catch the replay tomorrow. Awesome. Any questions about the Janome machine? Was that fun? I did a quick demo of a Janome memory craft, and Lois agrees she loves her Janome. She has a Janome as well. I think yours is a 9450. Which one do you have, Lois? I love Janome machines. Let's see. Did I go through everything? This is what I was trying to show you about how this process worked with the art quilt. So that demo on the Janome was partly to show you that you can do this if you have a system in place. You have a good machine, a machine that is capable of free motion quilting. You can see my Janome just up here in the corner with my open toe foot. You can also see, if you look over to the far left, that's my extension table that gave me that extra space for quilting art, and my glider. So a good machine that does free motion quilting, that gives you space, a glider. You also want to have an extension table. So Lois says the 9400, she upgraded, yes, for ruler quilting, and she also got the 15,000. Janomes are fantastic machines. They are well worth the investment. It's an investment because you're going to invest in yourself so that you can have success. That's what we want, success, right? Okay, so she is now finished. She is finished. Eyepiece is finished. And I always, with art quilts, I make them the background a little bit bigger than what the final piece is. You can see my blue lines there. I know that that is the true line where I'm going to, that's the area that's going to be visible in the final quilt. So then I'm going to trim off just enough, because whenever we quilt that densely, the fabric's going to do this. It's going to give in. So I want to make sure that it's the right size, and if I need to adjust that line, because this was actually for a competition. This was for a competition, and the final piece had to be a certain size. So I made it a little bit bigger so that once it was done, if I needed to adjust, because I added so much thread, I could adjust. This piece is actually now traveling around the US in an exhibit, and it's called Eye Contact. But look at that texture. You can create this kind of texture. This is the thread. This is the glide thread that you're seeing. Glide thread. I love this thread. It's a 40 weight thread. Has just enough sheen. You see, it's not too shiny. Do you see that heavier weight thread around the eyes that we talked about earlier? And look at the black fabric. Remember, we talked about that too. That fabric is not solid. Did you see that it had some shadowing in it? I did that on purpose. Whoops. So you can see, I'm going to highlight that in the carousel. It's part of Island Batik's foundation fabrics, which batiks generally can have not just solid black, but they can have some black on black tones. And that's what I wanted. I wanted some black on black tones. I didn't want it to be perfectly solid. So I like that about this. You can do this. Just get the right tools. And we talked about the tools tonight. We talked about needles. We talked about thread. You can make an art quilt. Have fun. Are you inspired? Are you ready? Do you have the tools you need? What are you missing? Are you missing the right needles? The right needles for the thread. I love Topstitch Needles. Now, for those of you that have been following me for some time, you know that I test. Once you get the testing done and you find what you like, what works with your machine, you are good to go. You're going to have needles like me. I always have these needles because they work. I know that I'm going to get the result I want because I've tested. So that's what I always recommend. Hello for those watching on Amazon. Don't forget to hit that follow button. I go live with all kinds of tips and techniques for machine quilting, for quilting in general, patchwork, and for other types of crafts. Check me out. You can also click the button when you can see more live streams and see the other things that I've done in the last few days. I've talked about some craft books and other things. Go check it out. all about inspiration for fiber arts, like a letter quilt, the love letters. All right, I think we are just about done for tonight. Hello, Taylor. Thank you for following. Awesome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I am so excited. I love thread. That's why this was called thread art. You can decide what you want to make with fabric and thread. You can tell a story. I told a story. I told a story about eyepiece, and I did this with thread and a little bit of fabric, right? But it's mostly thread. It is all about thread and fabric, and you can be very expressive with thread. It's like paint for the fiber artist. Can I say that? Would you ladies agree that thread can be your paint? And of course, fabric can too. I use fabric for the eyes, but again, I did some nice detail. You can do it too. It's just a step-by-step process. And I shared with you tonight my process, how I set up my machine, how I warm up. Let me know, is this something that you ladies enjoy and would like to do again? I know I'm going to be back with you ladies on YouTube on Friday. And I promise that we're going to do baskets. And this is the teaser. We're going to talk about this basket and others like it. I'll go to the overhead camera. This is a rope basket. If you missed the live session here on Amazon and YouTube on how to get started making rope baskets, it's in the replay list here on Amazon. Watch that one so that you're ready for Friday, because this is part 2. We're going to talk about how to take clothesline. This is a clothesline and additional craft cord to make this basket with fantastic texture and color with variegated thread. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? I love that. So that is clothesline, craft cord, and variegated thread to make this basket. You can see here, this is the clothesline, and then I brought in some craft cord, and we're going to talk about how I made this. You can do it, and I want to help you. You can make this, and I want to show you the tools that you can use to make your own. And guess what? Guess what machine I used? Because I made the investment. Guess what machine I used? I want to show it to you again. I used this machine, my Janome Memory Craft, to make the baskets. It's an investment. I love crafting. So thank you for following. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Get information about the tools and techniques for successful, repeatable results with quilting, with crafting, with making baskets. Hello, Phyllis. Thank you. I'm so glad. Dr. Valerie, hello. Miss Moore, thread is your palette for fabric painting. Great show as usual. You are welcome. You are welcome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm sorry. You're welcome, Phyllis. Yes, this was helpful as a beginner. I'm so glad. Awesome. So the best thing to do now is to don't be afraid. It's to jump in little by little, step by step. Thank you, Lois, for following on Amazon. Hey, ladies, for those of you on YouTube, don't forget, you can come over here to Amazon and you can see the products right here, the tools. They're products, but they're tools. You want to be successful. And I have done all the homework in terms of finding the tools that work. I've given you a starting point. You can start there That way you don't have to do the years of research that I have done. And if that works for you, you're all good. But then if a tool I suggest is something that's not working for you, you already had a starting point to look for what is going to work for the project that you want to make. The right machine, the right needles, the right threads. I'm so glad, Phyllis, that this has been helpful as a beginner, but you have to start testing and doing some of that work yourself. And that's what I want to encourage everyone to do. Start stitching. Get those tools that you need. All right, ladies, thank you so much. I think that's it for tonight. I think I've covered everything in the carousel on Amazon. That was fun. I will see you again at the next Quilt Conversations Live. And if you're following on Amazon, they will alert you when I post that I'm going live. So guess what? I'm going live again tomorrow. I'm going to go live only on Amazon, and it's going to be about triangles. Triangle tools, and triangle books. It's going to be a short 1-hour session. We're going to talk about triangles and how we can use that for quilts and easy ways to cut triangles. That's already been posted. You should see it in upcoming live streams tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. Quilt Conversations Live. See you next time.